You ready, brother?
Yeah, bro.
Okay, let's go.
I can't believe it.
Yeah,
2
really,
days
mate.
ago.
That's it. Look
2
at us
days
now.
ago, we were sitting at the cafe.
Yeah, mate, bound to happen.
I know.
Meant to happen.
We spoke about this.
That's it. Hey guys, Dom from Another Day here, and I'm really proud to announce that we have our first ever podcast series and episode, and it is quite rightly named Questions for Another Day. And what better person to have than the man on my right, the local legend who has just run all the way from Coolangatta to Cronulla, Darby Maguire. Darby, welcome, mate.
Pleasure to be here. I'm stoked to be here.
Mate, what a journey.
I know.
Unbelievable.
I know. Met 2 days ago and here we are.
It's exactly
sitting in
right.
a
So to
podcast
give
studio.
everyone a bit of an idea and a bit of a story, we met 4 days ago at Sweat Chill XR, which is our mate's wellness centre just down the road. From there, I asked Darby to be an ambassador. We had coffee on Tuesday. Today's Thursday, and here we are, mate, filming
I
a
know,
podcast.
It's crazy.
We spoke about it,
yeah.
you know, and look at us now.
I know.
So, mate, my first question that I want to ask, and there's so many that I want to ask, is take me to the night you finished the run. So all the adrenaline's done.
Yeah.
You're lying in bed. I don't know what time that is. I don't know if you're drunk, if you've had a few drinks or whatever it is. You're sitting there and you're looking at the roof. What are you thinking?
I feel like when people do something like this, or like it's just an expectation generally that after you do such a big feat or come off this massive high that you're going to have a big blowout, go and get some drinks and stuff. But honestly, the whole journey of this has actually epitomised what it means for like the journey, not the destination.
Yeah.
It wasn't, crossing the finish line for me was like the quickest bit. So it felt great, don't get me wrong. It was amazing. It was so cool to see the support there. But when it ended, it was this empty feeling. Like I said to you the other day, we were talking, and I said to you that the desire to push myself didn't go away. Like that still stays, but the task is missing.
Yeah, that's
So
right.
it is like this emptiness feeling. I feel like anyone who's ever done anything like this would be able to relate to that. And like ultra runners and the sport of ultra running, it's a very common thing that like you spend so much time training, so much time preparing. You go through this journey of self-discovery almost, that when it's done, that task is gone. It's like the mission's complete.
That's
what do you
right.
do now?
Yeah.
So that night, I went to Cronulla RSL for a little bit, but I was knackered. I was so tired.
Understandably so.
Yeah. So I ended up going home and actually just going to sleep and relaxing. And then the past couple of days, you're sort of trying to workshop something else to do, something else to put your energy into.
Yeah. Okay.
But it's a bit of an empty feeling.
And people talk about that a lot. They talk about when they're preparing for something, whether it's an athlete or just something, and it could be for anything, you know, and you have that preparation and that time building for something, you know, and, you know, it might be someone who's leading up to a wedding or a job promotion or a sporting event, you know, and you hear about it a lot when like NRL players win a grand final and then they sort of say, what now? You know, where you're continually trying to achieve it, or a boxer going for a world title, you know, these people are aspiring to do something. You train all your life for it. And then you get it, and it's like, oh, okay, what replicates that now? How do I find the next
I guess
thing
it
to
is
drive
like
for?
I actually saw this the other day. Someone was talking about maybe it's not like that emptiness feeling isn't necessarily a lack of, but it's more your bar has just been set so high. So for me now, it's like you've come off the back of a 900-kilometre run, and it's like what's next? Because it can't be less.
That's 100%.
You know what I mean? And it's a good thing. It is. It's like you're setting your standard high, and it's a good thing for personal growth. You want to set the bar high for yourself, but it also means that like you can't do a 900k run every second week.
Yeah,
and that was actually, which we can get into a bit later, is one of the reasons why I couldn't stop. Like no matter how hard I wanted to, like that empty feeling is also a product of the fact that it's logistically a nightmare.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
like
that's
to
right.
To plan something like this takes so long. So you can't do it again. If I was to stop and not do it, it would have been terrible.
And we will go into it a little bit later, but obviously it wasn't just you. You had a lot of people around you, like, you know, anyone does when they have that kind of, you know,
definitely.
event and they're going through that kind of thing. Take me back, Darby, if we were to give, say, our viewers a 2-minute summation of who Darby Maguire is, can you give me a bit of an idea in your own words as you sit here before me? Who are you?
That's a very heavy one. But I'm a 21-year-old school teacher from the Shire. I like to run. I like to stay healthy. And I think probably one of the things that actually makes what I did cool to other people and cool to people my age and people who are older, people who are younger, is that I'm actually a fairly normal dude. Like I'm a school teacher. I just finished my first prac, and I just had an idea, and yeah, 21 years old, not much of a runner, despite the
which is interesting. Because
despite the accolade, not much of a runner. And
people would think that you have a background in running, that you might have won all the school titles and went to zone and state and had some kind of background, but it's pretty much the furthest thing from that.
Yeah, it is, and I think. Yeah, I didn't even run through school, hey?
Yeah.
I only picked up running. I picked up running 12 months ago, and it just came from a desire to push myself.
Yep.
And that was where it stemmed from. But yeah, I did my first prac on the back end of last year. So I had the idea about a year ago.
Yep.
Or 8 months ago to do this run, to do the 900 kilometre, the Coolangatta to Cronulla. And did my first ever placement at Innabarra.
Yep.
Did that for 10 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, I actually started the run. So I was training throughout that whole 10-week period where I was teaching as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was tough. It was very draining. I would be doing about 10 Ks a day and then an ultra on the weekend. So every Saturday I'd go out and run at least a marathon or a 50K run.
Yep.
Never actually hit the 60K until I got to Coolangatta, which was crazy because there's an animal that lives around that 50K mark. But
yeah, and you did tell me, Darb, that you would run for training on a Sunday from Cronulla down to Wynn Stadium.
Yeah, Cronulla,
which is just insane.
Yeah, it's about 60K. Or it's short of 60K. It's just over 50K. It was about 53K, 52K, and that was I'd run it on the highway. I knew that for the bulk of the run I was going to be on the highway, so I did it on the highway.
Is that? I mean, obviously there's a sense of danger to doing that. You know, like if your back's obviously you're running, you know, with the traffic, but like you don't have anyone behind you like you did on the big run. So is that like, how do you? I mean, have you got earphones in?
No.
So that's just you running on the side of the road, just praying that no one swerves off the road.
When you say it out loud, it sounds a bit ridiculous.
Well, it sort of is. It's crazy because you do see people do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes they've got earphones in and you just think at any moment, I mean, you know, but that's just another sense of what you did, you know.
So, yeah, I during the training runs, it was me. I had a couple of mates who would come with me sometimes, but same thing. It's funny when you get into the big runs. I feel like part of the reason why I actually ultra run, aside from obviously my personal background and what led me to that, which we can talk about in a second, but part of the reason I ultra run is because being in that moment of wanting to stop, you're with yourself. 100%. It's you against you. And I feel like whenever I put headphones in, it's like a third person entering the room. Yeah. And it's just too much. Three's a crowd.
Yeah, that's it, 100%.
It's me against me. Yeah. It's like you're adding a third person. So for me, I don't put headphones in, don't put music in. I was doing 50K runs. I did a run from like Unanderra down to Shell Harbour and back.
Yep.
And that was pretty big. But yeah, it's like you're on the side of the road. You got the bike lane, but it's not very wide.
That's it. And to your point of wearing headphones, David Goggins actually speaks a lot about when you do wear headphones, as it is a form of cheating to a degree, because you were relying on an external sort of resource to sort of get you through. Now it might be motivational music, it could be a podcast, it is someone else. So instead of sitting there in your own head or demons or whatever it is, saying, that's it, I've had enough, I can't do it, you are sort of relying on that. And look, I'm someone, when I do run very, very infinite, but I usually do wear earphones for that reason, because the first thing your body and your brain will say is, no, this is it. No, we can't do this. You know, and you as an adult, you can stop. You can stop whenever you want. You know, we spoke about.
I think that's probably like the biggest thing across the board about any physical feat or it doesn't even have to be something as extreme as running 900 kilometers. There's always going to be two voices in your head. One's telling you to stop, one's telling you to keep going. Yeah. And how you get these results and how you get these accolades or whatever you call it, whatever it may be that you're actually working towards, is just who's going to win. Yeah. Is it going to be the one that's telling me to stop? Is it going to be the one that's telling me to 100%. Keep going? And I think people have this expectation of, when they see someone do something crazy, it's like, oh, that person must just be so motivated. They must just want to do this thing. And it's like, that's not actually reality. And when we start talking about the actual run, we can talk about this because it's not like motivation comes and goes. It's not actually a thing that's constantly hanging around, which most people don't know. Most people expect you to be the most motivated person. If you run, they think you're the most motivated person in the world. Yeah. It's like, no, a lot of the time it's me telling me to stop the whole time. I want to stop. I want to throw the towel in. I want to give up. But You just can't. You could jump in an ice bath, get the same feeling.
Yeah, and that's right. And I think a lot when you look at team sports, you know, you can have an off day and someone else can get you home.
Yeah.
You know, and that happens a lot across the board. You know, there's generally one or two players that are amazing. They all tie into a team. But when you look at, they call the loneliest sport in the world boxing, and it's just you out there with another guy or woman, and you are just going, you know, hammer and tong for it. Other sports like swimming, they talk about just staring at the black line.
Yeah, the black line.
You hear Ian Thorpe and Grant Hackett talk about it, and that sort of monotonous, just looking,
staring at the M1,
4 a.m. That's it. You know, 4 a.m. You know, waking up and just training, training. You know, Usain Bolt talked about, you know, he trained 4 years to run 9.68 seconds.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
That's I talk about that as well. Like what you said. How did I feel when I finished? When you talk about how you feel when you finish. The finish line's the shortest part of the whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, the finish line, for me, lasted, like, what? Not even 35 seconds.
Yeah, and knowing
you grab
those
the
people
banner
were
and
there.
you're done.
Yeah, and knowing those people in Cronulla, you would have been, you know, so amped up going, God, all my friends and family are down
like
there.
That. And
you know,
you're like, all of a sudden you're done.
Yeah.
And it's like, wow, this is crazy. But yeah, it is that. It's like there's so much work that goes in before doing something, so much unmotivated work.
Yeah.
Times when you don't want to do it. That leads up to this what you think is going to be this massive moment, and it is. It's incredible. I was running through Cronulla and I was almost crying. Like there was so many people there. Like I could hear them. It was crazy, and way more than I ever expected.
Yeah.
But crossing the finish line was a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
Like, and then it's done.
Yeah.
You're no different from before the finish line.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's you expect to be this like heightened level of person, like everything's gonna change for that's not how it works. The actual change came from the 14 days where I was out on the Pacific Highway running.
Yeah.
That's
right.
where it
Testing
actually
yourself.
happens. Yeah.
Yeah. So how was it that it came about that you were going to go from Coolangatta to Cronulla? How did that idea come about? You said you sort of had it, but then actually to put it into reality, because like we spoke about, you could have ran from Cronulla to win, and that's still an achievement, right? That's massive. That's a big effort, you know. So why was it 900 kilometres? Why was it over 14 days? And why was it Coolangatta to Cronulla specifically? What was about that run? Because if I sit here, I think, like, there's not a lot of room for error there. You know, 2 or 3 days in, you can pull the pin.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what I mean? It's like
definitely.
you could have started safe and started, you know, like, say, Cronulla to Wollongong. And, you know, like, I'm not saying that's an easy run by any means, but a lot easier than what you just accomplished. So what was it about that distance and that sort of track that you ran that made you want to do it?
That's funny. I actually spoke to a mate about this today. And we sort of talked, and what you said then, I could have gone safe. So if we break it down, what I did, I ran from Coolangatta to Cronulla. It was 900 kilometres over 14 days. I was doing 60 kilometres a day.
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. That's what happened. The actual backstory of it, and I spoke about this, like I said to my mate, it's funny, we were talking about risk. So like when you just said I played it safe, well, I could have played it safe. In order for me to get that feeling of accomplishment and that feeling of I'm pushing myself to a limit where most people aren't willing to go, I had to evaluate how much would I actually lose by doing this. So, for example, for me, the story of how I became to run a year ago is I wanted to change my life. I actually saw Nedd Brockman. Nedd Brockman. He saw him do his Cottesloe Beach to Bondi.
Yeah, incredible.
Incredible. And I was like, that I want to do that. That's something I want to do. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I don't know what it takes to do it. But if he can, and he talks about this as well. If he can do it, I can do it. Just meant I had to change my life a little bit. So I was 20 years old at the time, drinking a lot, going out partying, as you do.
Yeah.
Having a lot of fun, but also I knew a desired result I wanted, and I couldn't do it unless I changed.
Yeah.
Like there was no possible way that I was going to get a different result out of continuing the same actions that I was doing. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people know.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people probably out there that want something and maybe aren't willing to change or aren't willing to do that. That is something that you have to do.
It's a discipline behind
Exactly right. So started running a year ago, 12 months ago, got a coach, a guy named Joe Ward. He's an absolute legend. He is a freak. He has coached Sean Bell, who ran around Australia. He was doing a double marathon a day for like 160 days.
Wow.
Yeah. Like there's some freaks out there.
Yeah.
And so I got in contact with him and was sort of like, look, I want to get into multi-day stuff. And with running's one of those beautiful things, and anyone who runs would know that it's an infinite thing. You can always go bigger, you can always go quicker, you can always go better. So in the beginning of the year, I did 7 half marathons back-to-back over a week. That was cool. Like you said, though, a little bit of a safety net.
Yeah.
You know, I honestly thought and knew I could do it.
You were super confident.
Super confident going into that. And I did it pretty easy, did it really intelligently, ran very, intelligently, didn't run too quick, didn't quite safe.
Yeah.
And after that, I maintained coaching through Joe, and I was like, right, I want to do something bigger. I need to push that limit. And I sort of knew that once I'd had the idea, it would take a lot more... What's the word? It would take a lot more to let go of it than to pursue it. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like once you decide you're going to do it, you got to go in. And I started to think about risk as like this thing of, for me to do this, I'm going to have to change my life. I'm going to have to stop partying a bit. I'm going to have to stop drinking. I'm going to have to stop all of that. This is a risk. This is something I'm going to lose. I'm going to have to say no to going out with my mates. Going to have to do all of that stuff. But then I started to sort of look at it as how easy would it be for me to get that old life back? If I do pursue this and I do go all in with this challenge and put in the effort, put in the work, put in the training, put in that energy to be like, I'm not going to stop until I do it. How quickly could I turn around and get all of that back? And I realized that it wouldn't take much. I've seen videos on people talking about this and it like hit me. I was like, it wouldn't take much for me to get that old life back. If I wanted to go back to the old Darby who never did this, take a phone call.
That's what I was going to say. Call a few mates. Yeah, go to Northies.
Yeah, exactly right. That's what it is. And that hit me. And I was like, I need to do this. I was like, if I don't see this through, I will never know. So sort of got workshopping, called Joe, and I was like, right, I want to do Coolangatta to Cronulla. I used to go up to Byron a lot as a kid. So I knew the East Coast. When you're driving 110, it doesn't seem too long either. So I was like, this will be easy. I was like, I got this. And I think it was just almost like being a bit naive kind of worked in my favour. Because I was like, I think I can. Like, I've seen other people do it. Yeah. I've got this coach who's this bright, bubbly, hyper-confident dude. He's like, yeah, you've got this. So I called him. I was going to do it in April of this year. So I was going to be doing it in about 3 months. And he was like, I remember we were training and everything kind of went a bit stagnant. It was all like, if the goal is really far away, training for it becomes a little bit harder because you're like, I can skip this because it's not for another 6 months. I never did that, but that goal isn't there. You know what I mean? It's so far down the line that you've really got to dial into it. So I remember I was training really hard, and I called him, and he was like, why don't we do it in December? And my first thought was, that is in the middle of summer.
Middle of summer, that's right.
I was like, that is smack bang in the middle of summer. And you look at most people and they don't do it in the middle of summer, which is rightly so. I figured that out the hard way.
Well, you would have known. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and so originally I was like, right, I've got to somehow... This is, mind you, about 2 months before. So I had about 8 weeks, 10 weeks, which was my placement, to figure out a crew, to figure out logistically how to do it, the route, how to actually map out 60 Ks a day. Because you're running the 60 K, but you don't know if that's going to land you in Sydney.
Is that just literally looking at a map and trying to break it up? Or did you lean on anyone who had done a similar run or who would know the right way to go?
I did it on a map originally, and then I got in contact with other ultra runners. There's a guy named Mark Avery. He's an absolute legend. He's friends with my coach.
Yep.
And I looked at my coach and I was like, right, who has done similar things? And you start diving deep, man. People have done some messed up stuff.
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine.
You start to go down that rabbit hole of ultra running and this sort of idea of pushing yourself. People do some crazy stuff. And I sort of looked at the people who Joe was surrounding himself with and found Mark Avery. And he done something similar. He did it in marathons. He did 42, roughly about that a day.
Okay.
And followed parts of his route, followed parts of Joe's route, put it all together, ended up coming up with my own, which followed the M1. And you can look at that on my Strava as well. It follows the whole M1 until I get into the entrance and stuff. And then I hug a different road. But yeah, pretty much the whole way down it was the M1. So we ended up deciding that I was going to do it in December, starting on the 27th of December. And pretty much be, as far as I know, the first person to ever do it smack bang in the middle of summer. And it's so funny, like, you think that you have this grand idea that's going to be this crazy thing, and then you start talking to someone else and it's like, it's nothing. I was like, how are we going to do this in the middle of summer? And Joe's there like, oh, it'll be easy.
Yeah.
I'm like,
nice and positive.
I'm like, I've been doing my training runs, running down to Wollongong, running 50 Ks as I was saying in the middle of summer, and I was like pushing.
And were they early morning, or were you trying to get away from the heat? I'm guessing you're not doing it at like 1 and 2 in the Arvo.
No, well, actually, it was funny. By the end, I started pushing them out to the Arvo just so it would be hot.
Yep, okay.
And it was funny. Me and my mate, me and my mate would do these insane runs in the middle of the day, specifically to try and get the hottest part of the day.
Perfect, yeah.
Yeah, and that's what we did. So anyway, those 2 months go by. I ended up getting my mum, my girlfriend, and my mum's partner to come along.
Yeah,
and
so they were your support crew?
They were my support
all the
crew.
way through?
The whole way through.
Yeah,
Didn't leave my side. And I had people coming up and joining me. But to get me to the start line, it was that 2 months of just training, doing these long runs. And then it's funny, they were the support, and they also organised a lot of logistical stuff. So I had people coming on board, which were helping, donating me stuff. It was absolutely awesome. But those 3 people, they knew what was going on before I even put foot to concrete.
Yeah, and you need that, because when you're exhausted, you need that support crew to
and
say,
also, it's one of those
going.
things where, like, it's such an emotionally exhausting task. Like, before you even start grappling with the fact that you're about to run 900 kilometres or 60 kilometres a day is so emotionally exhausting that you don't even have space to think about how you're actually going to do it.
Yeah.
So a lot of like those 2 months was actually spent almost doing nothing, because you don't even know where to start. You know what I mean? It's like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to actually get to the start line and run 60 kilometres when I'm sitting here in Sydney being like, where do you, like, you got the heat, you got food, you got hydration, you got, can I actually physically do this? All of these different factors that you've got to think about that crowd your head, and you're like, where do you start?
Well, I want to go back for a sec to the mentality and when you had the shift fuel mentality, Darb, and you talked about it before, is when you were around 20 years old and you said, if I'm going to be able to do something like this run, I need to change things. Now, was that a decision where you had to speak to your mates and say, look, boys, don't call me when you're going to the pub, or you had to vocalise that with people around you? Because you can make that decision, but it's hard with your group of mates to actually understand exactly what you want to achieve. And when you were saying something quite outlandish as running from Coolangatta to Cronulla, you know, as a young bloke, as a 20, 21-year-old, you know, sometimes, oh, yeah, of course, he's taking the piss, you know, you won't do that. But did you have to put barriers in, or did you actually step away from your mates, or was that something you vocalised to them, say, look, I'm just going to train for about 6 months, I'm not going to come out, don't give me that temptation? Is that something that happened, or was it just gradual, or did they from the start say, mate, is that what you want to do? We'll support you?
They were very supportive. And my mates, like, I love my mates to bits, and that's something that I'm really positive about. It was actually kind of the opposite. A lot of my mates, yes, there is always going to be that temptation. And a lot of the things I still did go to, I would just not drink. I'd go home early. And once they saw, I'm a big firm believer in actions speak louder than words. Massive. That's my thing.
They saw your commitment.
They saw that I was doing these runs, and then once they see that, it's like, oh, this
shitty serious.
Yeah. He actually could be going to do this.
Yeah.
So it's funny, and I feel like we shouldn't do this, but when you see someone doing something or acting on something, you almost give them a get out of jail free card. So I would go to things and people would be like, oh, you shouldn't be drinking. Yeah. And I wasn't drinking, but people would be like, oh, it's expected that you wouldn't drink because you got this thing coming up.
That's right.
It's like, I feel like sometimes we also need to be like, growth doesn't have to look like running across the country. 100%. Like, if someone wants to just stop drinking for a while and start getting more active, being fit, going to the gym, like, I feel like we shouldn't be pressuring people to do that.
No, that's right.
Because growth looks like anything.
It does.
Like, and yeah, so from my mates, a lot of them would like start doing these running shuns. I had a couple of mates do the Goggins challenge, the 4 and 48, 4 miles every 4 hours for 48 hours. So a lot of them started getting a bit like...
So you inspired them.
Yeah, well, yeah. I actually, when I did the half marathons, I had people coming and running them that had never run half marathons, my mates. So, like, I guess in the year, to them, I became this running freak.
Yeah, the guru.
It was like almost like an experimental thing. It was like, all right, how far is he going to go?
Yeah, but how good you could bring them with you.
It was awesome. And they actually, when I was on the run down the Coolangatta to Cronulla one, they actually came with me. They joined me.
How good.
And we can talk about that when we
Yeah,
get into the
definitely.
journey. But yeah, they came up. So I got blessed
Yeah.
with mates who were supportive and probably wouldn't maybe like, even if they didn't want to do the same thing, they had that same ambition to be like, right,
Yeah.
he's actually going to do it. And they end up trusting your word and be like, yeah. And that's what I feel like mates are for. Like,
That's brilliant.
They got to be there for you. They got to
100%.
But there definitely is socially, especially where we're from in the Southern Shire, there's definitely a social thing where it's like an expectation that Saturday rolls around, you're going to the pub.
Yeah.
You're going to do this.
Yeah.
Which again is why I think, to the outside perspective, looking in at when people do these crazy runs and you look at your Nedd Brockmans and like, I could name a plethora of people who do these crazy things. I think the reason that we think it's so crazy and that like you put this like mentality and all this stuff behind the people who do it is because there's not many people doing it.
That's right.
Like, it is a bit unusual to see someone do that and like stop going to the pub, doing all that. And it shouldn't be.
No, that's right.
It should, if you wanted, and I reckon there's many people out there who want that, but
Well, you couldn't have both, could you? You could be going to the pub every night, getting wasted, coming home,
Exactly
and then be expected to run to
you
win
can't
stadium.
so many people
there has to be a trade-off. If
so
you
many
wanted
people
to
want to
achieve,
change their life without.
but aren't wanting to give up what it takes to change.
Yeah, exactly right. So many people want to change their life while keeping their old life.
That's it.
Not
so,
possible.
Darb, take me to day one.
Day one.
So day one of the run, everything's set. You got your family around you. You're about to take off. You know that this is it, because ultimately you can have all the support in the world, but you're the one that's going to run it.
Exactly. You versus you.
100%.
It's me at the end of the day, and it's. So we drove up. I drove up with my
Hey, you
girlfriend.
cheated, mate.
Yeah, I got a bit of a course preview on the way up.
Yeah.
So yeah, day one rolls around 26th of December, 2024. We drive up, and we arrive in Coolangatta. Well, we arrive at Kingscliff, which is like 10 minutes away from Coolangatta, and we arrive, and it's a bit like, I remember being really not keen because I was like, it's here, like it's an excitement, but I was so nervous. So I almost like was like, I don't know, can I do this? And you really start to second guess yourself. And it was all of a sudden, as soon as I got up there, it was like all the training, all of these mental things that I had built through training, all these mantras that I had just went out the window. I was in such a new environment and such like an uncomfortable situation that I was like, oh, it was like daunting. You're driving up and you're seeing the sign that says Sydney's like 800 Ks away, and you're like,
Yeah. Shit, I'm going to run the other way.
Yeah. I'm about to run down this. So day one rolls around. We stay in Kingscliff on the 26th, and then we wake up on the 27th and we drive up to Coolangatta. It's like 5 a.m. They're an hour behind, so it was 4. And yeah, I start running through Coolangatta.
Is there anyone there?
Yep, my girlfriend's on a skateboard.
Yep.
Filming me.
Yeah.
And I had a woman come down from my run club that's actually in Kirrawee.
Yep.
And she happened to be up there. And
Yep.
she was like, oh, come join you for the first little leg. So she came and joined me. We ran through Coolangatta. That's when I started to get a bit excited. I was like, all right, it's actually happening now.
Yeah.
So I'm running through Coolangatta, get onto the highway, and it was a crazy feeling because as soon as you take that exit, that highway goes all the way to Sydney.
Wow, yeah.
So in the first 300 metres, we were on the exit of the highway. So yeah, first 300.
This is good, and then went bang.
Yeah,
So it's
so
just this
I'm
one
running along the
road.
beach for 300 metres, and then
Yeah.
if you've ever been to Coolangatta, you turn down
Yeah.
straight on the
That's
exit
it.
of the M1.
Yeah.
And then it's Pacific Highway from there all the way down to Sydney, 900 kilometres. And there's a sign. It says it right there. You got a sign. It says Sydney,
Yeah.
900K.
Unbelievable.
And that's in the first 300 metres. And then after that, there was a couple of exits that I took to end runs. But from that point on, it was Pacific Highway all the way to Sydney.
Okay, so you do your first day.
Yep.
So you
First day went good. I was excited. I was happy.
So
My
60
energy,
Ks knocked
60
over.
Ks.
And
Energy was a bit low though, because again, you got those nerves that are playing into it. So energy was a bit low, but yeah, got it done. 60
how
Ks.
was the body?
Body was fine.
Body was okay.
Yeah,
and then
body was
where
good.
where did you stay the first night?
First night we stayed in Byron.
Okay, and
Beautiful Byron
you
Bay.
obviously had accommodation set up all the way through
60 k's down each day. We'd set up accommodation
at hotels or motels. Okay.
Yeah, so when people do it, some tend to take a motor home and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I found
Did Nedd do that?
Nedd did that. Sean Bell did that. There's a few other people that have done that, and
I think the places Nedd was running across Australia, there wasn't a hotel to be
same as Sean.
hotel to be found.
Sean Bell did a full lap.
Yeah.
So like you can't possibly book all that accommodation.
Of course,
Like he's running through the desert at points.
Yeah.
Like, So like for me, 2 weeks, I the one thing that was very fortunate about my run, aside from it being in the middle of summer, was that it's on the East Coast.
Yeah.
So there is accommodation.
Yeah.
So we ended up finding accommodation. Some people were like, we'd go rock up to these accommodations. They were legends. Like some of us gave it to for free.
How good?
So good. There's amazing people out there that are willing to support if you put yourself out there and you. So yeah, that was really good. But yeah, first day we arrive in Byron.
Hard place to arrive and then have to jump up the next morning and start running again.
I saw some sick places. I was.
You would have some people jumping on the run from there with you.
I was I went to some amazing places. Yeah, I went to some amazing places, and these people are holidaying, and I'm going down the beach after just knocking out 60 k's, and I'm like hobbling.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if only I was here for a holiday.
Yeah.
And that's something that plays on your mind. You're like, I could just throw in the towel and have a holiday.
100%. That's right. At any time. At any time.
Great. But yeah, stayed in Byron Bay. First 60 k's knocked over. Found out what it took to run 60. Met some of those walls, those walls that you hit on those ultra marathons. And the first day, it's very much push through. Let's get it done. So those walls that creep around, they don't really taunt you.
That excitement's still there.
Yeah, that excitement still gets you through. It's only as the days sort of start to go on, it starts to get physically and mentally really difficult. And yeah, that hit day 2, which was
and let's talk about day 2 because I know I've spoken to you about it. But what happened on day 2 that was a spanner in the works, or after that excitement of day 1, what changed so quickly that it made you doubt yourself?
Ultra running's weird. Hey, when you look at it on a map, it gets scary. So after day 1, I just knocked out 60 k's, and I was like, "This is awesome." You're in that mindset of like, we're doing something big here. And then I pulled up a map and I looked, and I was like, "No, it didn't even make a difference."
Yeah. And is that something that people suggest that you do or don't, or would you tell people now,
don't
ever look at the map?
Well, I mean, it sounds ridiculous even when you talk about running from like the Shire, the Sutherland Shire to Wollongong on a highway. You look at that on a map, that's ridiculous. But that's only 50 k's.
Yeah.
And I was knocking out 60.
But you even see at Fitness First or something, Darb, you will see, I'll do it myself, people will put a towel over how far you've gone.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to know.
You jump in the ice bath, turn the clock around.
100%, because you don't want to know. But you're right. It's
exactly
that knowing going, oh, God, I've still got this to go. You know what I mean? It's that.
So day 2 hit me when I checked the map and you see Byron Bay and I've still got like the 800 and something k's. And
Wow.
Like that hits you like a ton of bricks.
Yeah.
So woke up in the morning, and the thing with any long distance run is you hit these walls and you hit these moments where you want. It's actually probably the same with a lot of things in life. Is you hit these moments where you want to stop, and if you lose that battle with yourself, it's so hard to crawl back up. Once you throw in that towel and it's done, it's all said and done, that you can't.
Because you had momentum. You're coming off momentum on the first day.
Exactly right. And second day, you've got 13 more days ahead of you. Yeah. There's not much that's going to pull you out of bed. It's got to be you. So I woke up in the morning, went out to Ewingsdale Road turnoff, which got me back on the M1, and energy was low. I was not feeling it, and it's really daunting to be at day 2 and not be feeling it. Like I've committed to this cause. I want to raise all this money. I want to do it for something I'm passionate. I'm raising money for mental health. You think all that's going to back you, but at the end of the day, it's you against you. So I get there and I've got all this push behind me, but so much in front. So yeah, day 2 was tough. Started running day 2. Energy was really, really low. And this is probably one of the most difficult parts of ultra running. And this is something that I learnt actually while I was doing this, was day 2, my body physically was fine.
Yep.
No problems. Not a single issue. I was probably like in the best physical shape that I'd been in for that whole trip on day 2, yet somehow that managed to be one of the hardest days. And day 1 was good. You're running through sort of Tropic until you hit Byron. From Byron to Coffs Harbour is nothing. There's not. It's barren.
No overpasses to jump under, get some shade.
There's nothing. So, yeah, day 2, wake up, start running. Energy's real low. Then the heat creeps in. First day was okay. Then the heat creeps in day 2. And that's when I sort of realised I was like, this is summer. I was like, I've chosen to do this in summer.
Thanks, coach.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe. Joe. Getting to do it in summer. And, chose to do it in summer. 42 degrees it hit on day 2.
And that's just bouncing off the tarmac straight in.
I was running for about 8 hours that day. By I'd start running at 6. By about 9 o'clock in the morning, it was in the 40s. I was losing just as much liquid as I was putting in. I had puddles in my hand of sweat. And I would be getting those big 2-litre bottles, dousing myself, sculling to them.
Yeah.
I probably would honestly make it about 300 metres before I would have to pour myself with water again. I was physically losing sweat. You could see it coming out. Yeah. I would have lost kilos of liquid. Yeah. And it was so hot that just that day alone, I burnt my lip. I blistered my lips. My shoes were nearly sticking to the ground. It was that hot. The heat coming off that road was burnt, physically burning me. I could feel myself getting burnt. And that was sort of the first taste of the physical difficulty of this. And the heat after day 2 never got easier. So I was running for the first 40 kilometers or first 50 kilometers on the M1 of that day. And that was terrible.
Yeah.
All I wanted to do was stop. I remember I sat under an overpass and I was with my crew, my mum's partner, Terry. He stopped. He had a bike with all the water and stuff on it. And then I was sitting under a bridge and my mum found me and I was lying there. That was probably the first time I had a physical thing where this was getting unsafe.
Yep.
This was getting to a point where not only did I not want to be out there, but I physically was in danger.
Did you be as determined as possible and had the discipline and everything else you want on the drive?
But physically,
there is the element of heat stroke and also cooking yourself,
exactly
to the point where you are just physically
so one of the things
exhausted.
that you worry, one of the things I worried about going into this was actually getting rhabdo, which is essentially where your muscles start eating itself.
Oh.
And it comes from dehydration, not getting enough carbs in. And some people just get real unlucky with it.
Yeah.
So there's points where you're starting to get sick and you're this isn't good.
Would you be physically vomiting or?
I never physically vomit. I'm not much of a vomiter.
Yeah.
People do. I didn't.
Yeah.
There were points where I was getting really dizzy. Hallucinations come on, all that sort of. That's very common in ultra running, but super early on in day 2 is terrifying. It's
knowing you've got another 12 days to go. Yeah.
I've never had that feeling. And when you've got such a big task in front of you, when you do these training runs, I was in training it's hot. Yeah, this is mad. Let's push through this 42-kilometer run. It's 40 degrees. You're with your mate. This is mad. Yeah. And it ends. You go inside into your air conditioner. You're done. You don't have to do that for another week. You could, if you never want to run in the heat again, you don't have to.
Yeah, that's right.
When you're out there, the only other option is to get up the next day and do it. So being day 2 so early on and having that element of physical danger, I was like, I might have bitten off more than I can chew.
So a little bit of self-doubt starts creeping.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I remember my mum came and found me and I had prefaced with my crew beforehand that I didn't want them to tell me I could stop. I didn't want them to put the idea in my head that it was getting dangerous. And I was actually the first one to do it. I thought for sure, my mum being my mum and my girlfriend, that they would want me to stop if they saw me in danger. And I remember I was like to my mum, under this underpass, I can't do this. I will not be able to finish this. And it was the only time on the whole trip where she told me to keep running, but I could tell even she was a little bit this isn't good.
Yeah. So she was worried about you too.
Yeah, just with the heat. Yeah. It was just the heat. And my body was physically still okay. And that's almost something that made it more difficult is because the heat, you get in the shade, you feel terrible, but physically your limbs are fine. Your knees are good. Your ankles are
No
good.
shin splints at
No
this
shin
stage.
splints yet.
Yeah.
So, someone will come up to you and be like, well, you have someone from your crew be like, well, can you keep running? And you're like, yes, I can, but your brain doesn't want you to. So you can't see another option there. You're like, my only option is to stop. But reality is you can take another step.
Yeah.
Which arguably makes it worse. I feel like that's very common is like sometimes that's why I feel like the price for regret of stopping these things is so high.
Yeah.
Because it's like, did I have to stop? So you're constantly grappling with this thing of like, when do I throw the towel in? When's the actual point where like I say, all right, this is enough? And like, how far am I willing to take it? And when it's on day 2 and like I said, like you're running past dead animals and like, that was the only thing that nearly made me vomit.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And there would have been some bad roadkill going up and down there
really
with
bad
the heat.
roadkill.
Yeah.
And like I just remember it was sticky. Like I've never felt heat like that.
Yeah.
On day 2, really early on.
And that's why you have boxers have trainers, because to protect them from themselves, as an example, because like you have a road crew who's worried about you. There's times where, boxers need someone to throw the towel and to say, this is not good for you.
Yeah.
You will keep fighting and that's admirable, but you're going to die or something's going to happen that you can't come back from.
And I actually said
having
that,
a
like,
support crew at that time who can at least check in on you and make sure you're okay. But at 42 degrees, you're feeling like, I don't know if I can do this.
It was actually funny going into this. Like I was excited for the point where I wanted to stop because I wanted, after all of the change that I had done, I was excited for the point where I wanted to stop because I wanted to see how far I was willing to go. I just didn't expect it to come on so early.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I was actually worried about was, am I going to take myself too far? Am I going to let myself be like, get injured? And you end up doing that anyway because you come so far and you're so driven. You find a way. You find a way to get through it in the end. But in the moment, you don't see that. So I was actually really excited for the point where I wanted to stop. I just did not expect it to come so soon.
Okay.
And like have to draw this motivation out of myself and go into this deep, dark place in your own brain where you're doing all this self-discovery. You're getting putting yourself in such an uncomfortable situation that nothing replicates it. You don't put yourself, like I'm intentionally putting myself in that situation.
How do you find that day today? You know what I mean? Like that's something you have to put yourself in that experience to take yourself to that dark place.
It's crazy.
To try and fight out of. So that was day 2.
That was day 2.
Obviously you finished.
I ended up
so we're sitting here knowing that you got to day, obviously 14. Days sort of 3 to 6. Does anything happen on any of those days? Do people come and run with you?
Yeah.
Do you have any? I'm guessing you do have those moments where the walls come up, and you're constantly breaking through. But talk to me about that sort of period.
I guess going back to that feeling of wanting to push yourself is the reason I originally started all this running stuff was just out of wanting to push myself and seeing the positive impact it made on me.
Yep.
So that's, I think, why I was excited to get to that point where I wanted to stop. And I don't think I bring it on in any way because, you train for it. You want to get as far as you can before you want to throw the towel in. But yeah, having it happen so early on day 2 where I had all of these factors, like that 42-degree day, having to keep going, the next 5 days, like, didn't really get better.
Yeah.
And you kind of think they will. You like to think when you see this stuff on Instagram that, like, you assume that their body might be deteriorating and, like, you see these ultra runners and you're like, oh, they look like they're going through the ringer. And you are. Your body starts to slowly,
it has to, right?
It has to at some point. But you think their mind gets stronger. You think they get into somewhat of a routine. And I was like, oh, after day 5, it'll be easy. I'll just cruise through. I've done the first 5 days, cruise through it. That's not what happened.
Yeah.
I got a rude shock. And again, it's probably that little bit of me being naive. And I was very fortunate to have my coach who is like a strategy man.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate to have other people coming up and support me. But after day 2, I started slowly making my way down to Coffs Harbour, still maintaining the 60 kilometres every day. But from Ballina, like I said, to Coffs is barren, wasteland, nothing.
So it's just road,
Just
no
straight
overpasses, nowhere to really have a break.
And there was nowhere, for the first 5 days, there wasn't really much area for my crew to stop.
Yeah.
So it was me with Terry on the bike behind me with my water. I was probably 50 to 100 meters in front of him.
Yep.
5 days straight, running 60 kilometers every day, battling my own thoughts. It was me and me only,
Yep.
running against myself.
No AirPods,
No,
no
nothing.
earphones.
Chucked a Joe Rogan podcast on for about 5 minutes.
Yep.
And threw the headphones out because it just was killing me.
You still would have had another 2.5 hours to go.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. So I no headphones, nothing. Battled out those 5 days. There were points, I think, every day I never woke up and wanted to do it.
Yeah.
There was never a day where I woke up in those first 5 days and wanted to get out there and run.
Yeah.
It was the thing that I wanted to do the least.
Yeah.
I could have thought of anything better than being out there doing that.
And was the disappointment in not being able to complete the run, was that more going to be internally on you, or was it going to be externally on, say, the charity or your family or your friends or people who believed in you? Or a bit of both?
When I started it, the whole premise, I guess, is doing something bigger than yourself. You know, you have the charity behind you, you're raising the money, and it's so motivating to see that. And there is that element of, if I stop, who am I letting down?
Yeah.
And no one will tell you that. Like, no one will, obviously, if you throw the towel in, no one, and that honestly makes it harder because no one's going to tell you,
100%.
oh, you should have kept going, mate.
But you've given it a go.
Exactly right.
And you'd have a handful of knockers, which is just, life in general.
Yeah.
But most people would say, mate, you tried it.
So
no
I
one
think
else
that
trying it.
one of the things that kept me going was I wanted to raise the money for mental health.
Yep.
And for me, and through Find Your Feet, one of the things that I realized is that what I was doing was bigger than me in terms of it was showing people that it was possible and to keep pushing, like another day.
Yep.
Go another day.
100%.
And that, for the first 5 days, not having that support network that started to grow as I traveled down the East Coast, for those first 5 days, it was me and my immediate crew. So that was getting me through, being like, right, there are people out there that are watching what I'm doing.
Yep.
And doesn't matter about me.
On socials and everything,
like,
which is great.
I have to tell myself, you shut up.
Yeah.
There's people out there that are pushing on another day. There's people out there that are pushing on, keeping on going.
They'll be looking forward to your, finishing the day.
Yeah, exactly.
Going,
I had mates over in Thailand that were talking about that.
Yeah.
We would look at it when we'd be going to bed.
And that was a big thing with Nedd, wasn't it? As he got towards, especially that first run,
massive.
going across Australia, people started to go, oh, okay, he's in the middle of WA or Darwin. But then he started to go, he's like 2 days away from Bondi.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, this is incredible.
And like, for me, raising that money for mental health was like big in those first 5 days. I was on the phone to Tommy for the first 5 days. And a lot of people don't actually know that I was struggling so much through that.
Yeah.
But those first 5 days, it was like, right, I've got my root cause here. There's not much else getting me through this. So I've got to draw on what I've got within me. And it was that core of, I'm doing this for mental health. People are feeling good. Yeah. People are realizing that they can do more. That's going to have to do for right now. Yeah. That's what's going to have to get me through these first 5 days. So no, in those first 5 days, it was every morning I wanted to throw the towel in. There were probably day 3, day 4 were the days where I was actually ready to stop. I remember on day 4 or day 3, my Garmin died, and that was that ticked me over the edge.
That's not a good sign.
No, Garmin died at 35K mark, and that was anyone who runs. Yeah. Anyone will know that if that happens on a run,
that's right. Yeah, it's a sign to say maybe you should stop.
Yeah, that's a sign. And I remember I was sitting there with Terry, and my Garmin was dead. I was looking at the thing, and I was like tossing on the ground. I was like, I can't do this.
Everything's telling me to stop.
I was like, I cannot do it. And when you get to such a deep point of wanting to stop and just discomfort, and it's hot, everything is telling you to stop. You cannot see another alternative. When you go on these training runs, the one difference I found about doing a multi-day thing as opposed to a training run is when you get to a hard point in a training run, say, you know you can push. Yeah. You know that it's going to end. I was like not even fathoming getting through the next 10Ks with this dead Garmin, let alone the 600, 700.
Kilometres you still need to knock over.
When you're stressing about a 5K or the next 5K, you can't even stare down the barrel of 800. Like, you can't
So would you have to
See
then
it.
reframe that, Dub? So you would sit there and say,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about the next 20 Ks. I'm just going to knock over 500 metres or 1K, and I know that that will lead to the next one. And then eventually, by doing that,
So-
I'll get to the end of the day and I'll try and recoup and I'll go again.
Yeah. So like the first 5 days, it was tough. It was really, really tough. Never got easier, but what did change was my mind.
Yeah.
So around Coffs Harbour, I got to... Yeah, so those first 5 days was just pretty much me machining through.
Yeah, just pure will.
Just pure, this is terrible. I've made a mistake. I'm just going to see how far I can go because I'm probably going to stop. That was what my mentality was. It was like, I'll do another day because I'm probably going to stop the next day. Like, it was a serious thought. I couldn't do it. And, like, this isn't me trying to explain to someone, like, it was difficult. Like, I genuinely, difficult or not, I just thought mentally I couldn't do it. I was done. And it was only once I got to Coffs Harbour that I actually had my first, aside from the lady who came up and ran with me, that I had my first interaction with people who weren't my immediate crew.
Yeah.
And it was when I got into Coffs Harbour, this run club came out and met me in the, well, not run club, these people who were part of an ultra trail running run club came out and met me. And it was only after Coffs Harbour that this mentality changed, and this is the story. So they came out and met me in the morning, and I was not in a good way. This would have been on day 5. I was really not in a good way. These people came out and met me. I'm sure if we went and found them now and asked them, like, how was he? How did he look? They would probably know that I was going through it a bit.
Yeah,
you can tell that the energy was low.
Yeah,
like,
especially if they're from a run club or an
yeah,
ultra,
and also
they
like you kind of see with this running stuff that's booming at the moment. It's all about like push, this is fun,
supporting
like,
each other.
like get through it. And I think they were like a lot of people expected to come out and find me having this David Goggins like ripping
Positive.
like, and actually it wasn't that. It was really hard. It was really low. There were really dark moments. And we can get into them in a moment.
Yeah.
But the story is they came out, met me in the morning, and they ran 10K with me and peeled off an exit. And they were talking to me the whole time, chatting away. I was in my own head.
Yeah,
Like I said, it's like adding that third voice in, and sometimes you just don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And so they peeled off the exit, and as soon as they peeled off, I watched them. I stopped at the exit. They got in their car, drove off, and I just broke down. This was day 5. I broke down. I was with the guy on the bike behind me. Terry, I was like, I can't do this. I'm done. We're going to walk until I see my mum and my girlfriend. They're going to be on the side of the road, about 3Ks down the road, calling it. That was actually the moment where I'd lost that decision. I had lost in my head.
That was it. You were done.
Done.
Yeah.
And so I walked 3K down to my mum and my girlfriend, and got in the car, and I was done. I was like, this is it. Let's drive. I was saying, let's drive into Coffs, stay at the accommodation, and then we'll just make our way down as we would, but I'm not going to run, obviously. We'll go hang at the beach, do all that. And my brain was honestly starting to trick me a bit because it says it's okay. You've come from Coolangatta to Coffs Harbour. That's an insane effort.
100%. It's a massive effort.
And it is. Like, it is. It feels like it is. But I said I was going to do Cronulla.
That's right. It's all you intended to do.
Yeah, but in that moment, your brain plays tricks on you. Your brain's like, nah, it's all good. And I feel like this is a very familiar narrative to a lot of people.
Happens to everyone, mate.
Happens to everyone. Yeah. Doing something difficult, jump in the ice bath, your brain says, it's all good, jump out. Like, you've done 2 minutes. Even though you said you're going to do 5, you've done 2, jump out. Exact same feeling for me. I was like, right, I've done this run. I've made it to Coffs Harbour. Enough's enough. I'm done. So I had decided that once I got to that rest stop, jumped in the car, I was going to drive into Coffs Harbour and call it. And I got to the car, and my mum and my girlfriend were like blessings on this trip. They were finding me people. They realised that I needed people to run with. They realised that if I was going to actually finish this, I needed people to run with. So still on day 5, get to the car 3Ks down the road, pretty much saying I'm done. There's a video of my mum going, you're not done, come on, like, you're not done. Yeah. And again, that thing of me being like, I was telling them that they weren't allowed to stop me, and I was the first one to throw the towel in.
Yeah.
So I was saying, I'm done. We'll drive into Coffs. And I feel like all of us a little bit were like, oh, this could actually be him done. Like, I think Terry, especially riding behind me for those first 5 days, he really got the raw me swearing, me out on that highway.
Yeah.
He was like, I think he might be done.
And surely they talked about it as a group too.
I definitely think that my mum and my girlfriend and all of my crew wanted me to not be done, and they probably thought that I was going to keep going. But I definitely think that there were conversations happening that I didn't know about that they were probably thinking I was looking a bit
even
worse.
Before you started, they might have said, well, how far is he actually going to get?
Exactly right. And
if he gets to day 3 or 4, what do we do?
Yeah.
You know, because they love you and they care about you. So, you know, it's like if someone you love, especially your son, is going through that and it's like, I've had enough. It's like your, paternal instincts to go, okay, I'm here to protect you. It's how hard for your mum to have to sort of push back and say, oh, I think you can still keep going, you know?
Yeah, I definitely think that was probably one of, like, from her end, definitely a difficult thing to do. Like, she almost had to put on a bit of an act. There was nothing more painful than for her to, like, watch me be in physical danger.
Yeah.
And have to keep me safe for this 2 weeks and then be like, am I contradicting everything I'm doing by letting him continue?
Yeah.
But then it's also, if she let me stop, at the end of the day, it's my choice. I can stop whenever I want, which makes it a little bit more difficult. But there were points where she would tell me to keep going, and I was like in my head being, you don't understand what I'm going through. You don't understand what's happening, because I couldn't see it from an outside perspective. You know what I mean? It was, she probably looked at me and was thinking, I'm fine. I can keep running, which I could. But my brain was so far down that rabbit hole of wanting to stop, I didn't even believe I could keep running.
Yeah.
I could have. And so I arrive at the car, day 5, 3Ks down the road, and we're having these conversations.
And you finished that day?
Nope.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
No, I'm only halfway.
Okay.
That was,
so you're hoping to jump in the car,
that was
go back to the hotel?
was the 25K mark.
Yep.
And so I get in the car. She's been organising all these people to come and run with me. And we get there, and this guy who she's got named Gain, he came along and he's walking up the highway, and I'm sitting there, I'm like...
He's by himself.
He's by himself. My mum's found this guy on some group or something. And I apologise if he sees this, because this is one of the stories that sticks out. And I don't even know, I don't apologise, because I don't even know if he knows that he had such a big impact on me.
Yeah.
And he comes over and sits down, and he's sitting there. He's driven out here to come run with me, and he's came at my worst possible time where I want to stop. And he sits down, and we're sitting there. My crew leaves, so they're like, at least walk with this guy. He's come out here to run with you. Walk with him for a couple K, and then quit. So quitting was an actual rational thing that was going to happen now.
Yeah.
At this point, stopping the run, because I'd wanted to stop the past 3 days, but now it had gotten to the point where I was like, right, this is a rational decision. We're going to stop. We're just going to go a couple more K because he's come out, run. Let's see if we can do it. Whether or not my crew was thinking that, they were telling me that. I probably reckon that they wanted me to keep going.
Okay.
Again, that thing of, when do we get him to stop? But anyway, Gain comes out, and he comes and meets me. And we get walking, and we're starting to talk, and I pretty much told this guy who I just met,
Did you think he was a runner or something?
So my mum had told me that he was like this ultra runner, and had been like, he runs ultras through the bush, he does all the trail ultras. And I was like, awesome.
So you thought there's maybe a guardian angel come from somewhere to get you through the rest of the day.
This whole day. And anyway, he comes along. He's this ultra runner, and we get talking, and I end up realizing that he's not an ultra runner. He's a runner, but he's not an ultra runner by any means. And he was a legend. He was just this guy who, he loved hanging out at the pub. He was a legend. Had the most profound conversations, but he wasn't this ultra long distance runner.
Yeah.
And I remember being there, And I was telling him how I wanted to stop. I wasn't actually telling him I wanted to stop. I was telling him that I was stopping.
Yeah.
So it had changed from I want to stop to I am now stopping. And I'm telling him this. And he's telling me that he might have just run maybe a half marathon, maybe 20 Ks, I think he said. And I was like, he's telling me like, oh, dude, you've come so far. Like, throwing, like, it's all good. Like, if you stop, like, and he's
the opposite,
the opposite of what I needed to hear.
What you thought you were going to hear from someone.
Not what I needed to hear, actually. It was the opposite of what I thought. I thought I was going to get this person who was going to come out and give me this motivational, here's how you're going to get through the rest of the days. You need to do this, that, and the other. And it was just not that.
Yeah.
We're sitting on this grass hill and he's telling me, like, yeah, just throw in the towel. It's all good.
He's like, am I on camera here? What's happening?
I remember sitting there, I was like, is this a movie? Because he's having this conversation and he's like, oh, it's all good. Like, you can stop. Like, you've already come to Coffs Harbour. That's incredible. Like, and I was sitting there like, why would I stop?
Yeah.
And I had this like little moment where I was like, this guy's telling me to stop, and him telling me to stop is every single reason why I should keep going.
Yeah.
And right when I had that thought, Mark Levy from 2GB calls me.
You're kidding.
Yes. So I'm sitting on the side of this hill with this guy who I've just met. We'd probably only travelled about 2K since I met him.
Yeah.
And I'm on the phone to Mark Levy.
And he's on air 2GB.
On air 2GB.
Yeah.
So I'm talking to him. He's telling me, he's like hyping me up, trying to get me. And I'm still in this headspace of I'm going to stop. But now I'm in this even more wild headspace of I've got this guy who's telling me that it's okay to stop and that I like should be happy with where I've come. I want to stop. And now there's also this other one being like, no, you can keep going.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm trying to have this conversation with 2GB next to this guy I've just met. It's like 40 degrees. Like, this becomes normal now. It's 40 degrees.
Yeah, you used to just being over 40 every day.
It's like, this just becomes normal. And I'm sitting there having this conversation with Mark Levy, and he's like hyping me up, being like, yeah, we'll see you at the finish line. And like, we'll go get a beer. It'll be so fun. How are you feeling? Like, asking me how I'm feeling. And I have to sit there and be like, yeah, man, I'm feeling great. Like,
yeah, that's right, yeah.
And I hang up the phone after this interview. You can see it's on Spotify. And I hang up the phone from this guy, Mark Levy, and I'm sitting there on the hill with Gain. And I was like, right, I've just told the radio that I'm going to keep going. I can't stop now. I got to at least get the day done. And I was like, this Gain guy's told me he's run 20 Ks. And I was like, right. I was like,
how far were you from?
We were like, I was only halfway. Yep. Not even.
Yeah. So you had about 30 Ks.
Yeah. So I was like, right, that's it. You're coming with me.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
And he's like, I remember he was like, all right, I'll come with you 10K.
Yep.
And then I got to go.
Yeah.
So anyway, we start running, we're talking about the same sort of motive. I'm in these dark places again. The thing is, you never get out of these dark places. It comes and goes in waves.
Yeah.
But when you're that far in, you're sort of staying in this place of I want to stop. And it's almost like problem solving. Gain at that moment was the solution to this problem I had. It was when he told me to throw the towel in and stop, and it was all good. Complete wrong advice, perfect time.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Like, it was the wrong advice, but at the perfect time. And ended up knocking out like 24 Ks with him.
How good's that?
So it was his longest run ever.
Well, there you go. He's got a PB. He's
exactly right.
Yeah.
It was like 40 degrees. We're running through Coffs Harbour, dousing ourselves in water. This is a guy that I've just met, and you can see photos of us hugging.
I've seen it. Yeah, on your socials. Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
The thing that was probably the most beautiful part of this whole journey was actually the people who I met. And it was like he came after I had been through this terrible 5 days. He came on that 5th day. And then it was like on that 5th day, it was on.
Yeah.
I got through that day. And from then on, I had accepted the fact that I was going to struggle. That was what I signed up for. I said I was going to run from Coolangatta to Cronulla.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it.
How good.
No other option. I can complain. I can sook about it as much as I want. But I'm waking up every morning, putting my shoes on and putting one step in front of the other.
That's it. And how good that Gain has a story now for his own life.
Yeah.
Say that, and he probably doesn't even realise it. Gain,
he's a legend.
Probably doesn't even understand the role he's played in this. And he would have just said, look, I've turned up and I saw Darby and we sort of went for it. Like, I was going to do 10K, he's done 30.
This wasn't even halfway through the whole run.
So even though you're trying to achieve something yourself, you've actually helped someone else do something.
Yeah.
He's gone away and gone, well, I didn't think I could do this either. So
Yeah.
you've inspired him. You know,
It was
which
awesome.
has inspired plenty of people now. But what a great story for halfway through that this guy's come from nowhere by himself and been able to sort of give you a boost you needed to push on to do, say, the last week of the run.
Yeah. And it was wild, eh? Like, that day was absolutely insane. We finished the run off, finished that 60K day, and then it was crazy. I met so many people this day. So I met Gain after I'd met this run club. So it was run club, then Gain, and then after I finished the run, every single day after I finished the run, it was pretty much get in the hotel room, put the aircon on, drop my body temperature as much as I could. Sometimes I'd jump in a cold shower, drop my temperature as much as I could, get to bed. Like, you need sleep. I was so tired. So that was pretty much the routine.
Was it easy to get to sleep, or would you have to force yourself, or were you paranoid
You
that
get the
I
twitchy
know
legs.
I need sleep?
Yeah, that
I
was
know
the
I
thing.
need
And
it,
it was,
and it's
it
like,
was,
oh,
there
then
were
you're sitting there going,
moments
I've got
where,
to
like,
sleep, I've got to sleep.
there was this battle every day. This same battle I have was, if I run quick, I'm gonna burn out. If I run slow, I'll finish later, and then that tucks into my sleep.
Yep.
So I'm in this constant thing of being like, what's the middle ground here? Like, at the beginning of the day, you're like, I'm going to take it real slow. I don't care what time I finish. And then at the end of the day, you're like, I need to get this done. And you get really anxious, really worked up, because every hour you spend out on the highway is an hour less you get to recover.
Yeah, good
So
point. Yeah.
finish this day with Gain pretty late. And my girlfriend Amy comes and picks me up. We're driving to the accommodation, and my mum says she wants me to go see this guy. And it's the father of someone who had come out to the run club that morning. And I'm in my head, I'm like, I've got to get to sleep. And I was like, I don't want to go see this guy. I was like, I don't really know if this is a good idea. Like, I'd been to the physio that day as well, actually. He and that was just a little checkup. But at this point, it was like 8 o'clock at night. Normally, I'm in bed by like 7.
I was going to say, recovery is all you're thinking about. Running, recovery, getting up, doing it again.
And also, when you're out there on the high, all you want to do is be in bed. Like, that's your comfort. That's the one bit of comfort. And that's pretty unbearable. Your legs are twitching, you got the cramps, all that sort of stuff. But I was in Coffs Harbour. It's about 8 o'clock at night. And my mum's saying, I want you to go see this guy. And it was from... My mum had actually worked with his daughter, who happened to be in the run club. So it was this big loop of he knows her, she knows him, la-di-da-di-da. My mum was so cool throughout this whole thing. So I was not in a position to be disagreeing with her. You know what I mean? If she wants me to go see this person,
That's
the least I can do.
You can't say no to mum anyway, but especially when she's going, with 900 kilometres with you trying to get you through a run.
Yeah. So, this was same day, day 5, and still low, still very low. I had these good moments with Gain, but then it ends and that goes away. You know what I mean? It's a constant battle. It was about 8 o'clock at night, and I really want to get to bed. I'm a bit on the anti side because all I want to do is get to bed. And anyway, it's this woman from the run club. It's her dad, and he's ex-military. He's got like this psychology. I was so dazed out. I don't even know how I was going to see. Like, I don't even know why I was actually going to see.
What kind of conversation were you going to have
I
with
was
this
like,
guy?
what is this actually about? I didn't know if he, like... Anyway, I end up going. My girlfriend takes me to their house. We go in. The lights are, like, low. And I'm like, what is going on? Like, I've never met these people. Like, how am I getting into these situations? And go meet this guy. And, he sits down. There's 2 chairs, like what we're sitting here right now. There's 2 chairs like this. My girlfriend, his daughter, and his wife sit down on the lounge over there. And I sit down, and he just asked me how I. He sounds like David Attenborough. It was crazy.
Okay, yeah.
I was on the phone to him actually just before, and he's got the voice of an angel.
Yeah.
And I sit down with him, and he's talking. He asked me how I am, how I'm going, what I'm doing out here, like what is going on, why are you here? So I get to tell him my story a little bit. But at this point, I'm still sort of talking about stopping, throwing the towel in. So I'm prefacing it in a way where I'm like, yeah, I've made it to Coffs Harbour. I'm almost telling myself these lies. I'm like,
a little bit of an escape clause.
Yeah,
there.
exactly right. I'm like, I've made it to Coffs Harbour. And guess I'm seeing how far I'm going. No intention of finishing. Like, which was just a lie.
Yeah.
Blatant lie to myself. And I tell him all this, and he starts going on to tell me he's ex-military, he's worked with people who have put themselves in these situations. And he goes on to tell me how he's spoken to people in situations of like physical danger where they could die, people ex-military. And he's telling me in this very soothing voice, he asked me if I'm a creative person. So he could very quickly tell that I was struggling, very quickly. And he asked me, he's like, are you a creative person? And I say, yeah, I like to think I am. And he says, have you been getting through this creatively? And this was another pin drop moment. I realized that I hadn't been getting through it creatively. I was trying to machine through this mammoth task by being this ultra runner, push.
Like a robot. Just get up and do it.
Get up, run. And that wasn't creative. That's not the way my brain works. I formulated this whole plan of wanting to go into these deep, dark places, Then all of a sudden, I've got this opportunity to go there and I'm trying to push it away. And it was that morning that I woke up and he spoke about people getting through these moments by envisioning angels lifting them up and like giants helping them through the like powers bigger than yourself helping them. And I was like, come on.
Yeah. So that's great, but
let's be real. I'm running.
Yeah.
That morning I woke up and decided I was going to be creative. I went into these parts of my brain where I was figuring out things that I didn't even know about myself, getting to a position where I had never been before. And it became less about wanting to stop and more about, this is really terrible. What can I find here?
Well, who's the bloke who's going to come out the other side?
What's going to be on the other side? And he actually said that. He said, every time you push through this wall, how is it? And he looks at me and I said, beautiful. Because on the other side of breaking through a wall where you want to stop and where you physically don't think you can keep going, if you start to realize this is where I'm meant to be, this is a part of my brain that I haven't ventured to before, this is terrible, but on the other side, I know it's going to be beautiful, you start to embrace it.
Yeah.
That's sort of where it changed. The next day, I woke up, my girlfriend's stepdad came up, and he's a professional boxing coach. His name...
Good person to have in your corner.
Exactly. Very good person to have in my corner. I got my coach, who's an absolute legend, and I got him now, who's come up in person. He's there, and he finds me. The feeling to stop never went away. Never did that leave. Even on the last day, never went away. What changed was my attitude to putting myself in that situation. So people like Nedd talk about like get comfortable being uncomfortable. Yeah. Goggins talks about you want to put yourself there, be hard, stay hard, whatever.
Yeah.
For me, it was actually a very spiritual experience. It was a very deep experience for me. I wasn't machining through this. This wasn't some glorified... I was alone a lot of the time, out there thinking for 10 hours a day.
Own thoughts.
So what changed was actually my drive to put myself in that position. And I knew that by going there, I was meant to be there. And the thing that made me realize that was my girlfriend's stepdad came up. We sort of figured out a plan for how I was actually going to run it, incorporating walking breaks. And this is when people started to reach out. It started to grow a little bit. I got a message from Nedd Brockman, which was...
Oh, how good.
That was like...
The one bloke who actually knows what you're going through.
Yeah. I was like, all right, this guy knows. I've been talking to my coach this whole time. He's a legend. Like, I started to talk to my coach a lot more.
Yeah, okay.
I was like, I've got these people around me.
Yeah.
Why aren't I talking to them?
100%.
I need this. So I was talking to him a lot more, and then I got that message from Nedd Brockman, and I was like, this is like so cool.
Just gives
like,
you that lift you need.
I was stoked. I was so stoked. I've got a smile.
Yeah, mate, you can see it now. Yeah.
And if you go back on my Instagram, I got a photo with it. It's mad.
Yeah.
Sent me this video, commented on my post and stuff. It was sick. But it was Amy's, my girlfriend's stepdad, that actually was sort of the vessel. He took the handbrake off the car and it was on. Yeah. Like we were going. He was giving me these tools to use to get through it, and none of it made it easier. This is the thing. Nothing makes the actual idea of running 60 kilometers every day easier.
You're still running it.
You're still running it.
Yeah.
You still got to get up and run it.
Yeah.
It's all in your mind. It's all your mind.
So
And
his advice was a lot more mental than physical.
yeah, he had physical things like taking more walking breaks and stuff, which I knew about. But like, again, just that idea of machining through it only gets you so far until you've got to be like, right, this is more of a mental thing now. I've got to figure out ways to mentally get through this. The exact same way that you would figure out ways, you figure out hydration, you figure out food, you figure out rest stops. They're all physical ways to get through, but everyone forgets that you've still got the mental side.
That's right.
And he came up, and that's when I got a phone call from Billy Dibb, boxing champion. I was stoked
Billy,
at that. That was
Billy
mad.
the Kid.
Yeah, Billy the Kid.
Yeah.
And got messages from Luke Jackson, Olympic boxer.
Yep.
And but yeah, Billy Dibb, I was on a FaceTime call with him really late at night. It was about 9 o'clock at night.
And he's just rang you out of the blue. He's got your details.
No. So he called Nudge.
Okay.
And he was like, I want to talk to him on FaceTime.
Wow.
This is Billy Dibb says this. He's like, I want to talk. So Nudge hands me the phone, and I'm sitting there in bed. I've got, again, smile on my face, just because it's so crazy to me that we've got this sort of support.
Yeah.
You know, I've got this. At this point is when the support starts to ramp up.
Yeah.
I got this support on social media. It's not massive, but I
Comes
got
at the
this,
right time.
Yeah, and I start seeing the donations coming in, and I'm like, this is crazy. So anyway, hands me the phone, and I'm sitting there. And he's like, how are you going? This, that, and the other. I'm like, I'm going all right. Like, another day, keep pushing. And he says, listen, I've got one bit of advice for you. He says, if you want to be someone who succeeds and someone who does this sort of thing and is great, you need to be willing to go to a place where your opponent is not willing to go.
Yeah. And he'd know better than anyone. He's a world championship boxer.
Yeah. Oh, he meant it. Yeah. When he said it, I was like I was a bit like chills.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that stuck with me right up until I touched that banner at the end.
Yeah. Okay.
That was in my head every single time, and I took it pretty much as gospel.
Yeah.
Every single time I was in a situation where I didn't want to be in it and it was getting uncomfortable, I knew that was right where I had to be able to complete this.
And it's interesting you talk about that, because Billy not only is with his prowess as a boxer, but he had to fight for his life only recently. And he'd come back.
He's actually just won an award. Come back of the year.
He did come back of the year.
Good on him.
But he was incredible. But he was like pretty much terminally ill, given 6 months to live, and fought back. So he's talking about that, you know, going to those places on so many different levels, and that kind of advice at the time. Exactly right. It's just incredible.
Definitely. And I remember he said that to me, and I took it as every single time I'm in this place in my own mind or this dark area of my own brain, every time I'm there, that's what it means to be doing this. The reason I'm there is because that's why I'm out here running. I'm out here running to get that. That's what I'm chasing. That's the carrot.
Yeah. Familiarise yourself with that.
Get into
feeling.
that place. Like you said, familiarise yourself with that, because that's where you need to be to have an outcome like running from Coolangatta to Cronulla.
Right, 100%.
And that's probably why people find it amazing, is because a lot of people don't go there.
No.
That's what I took from him. What he said, he said, you got to be willing to go to places where others are not.
100%, yeah.
And that's what I took from that.
Great advice.
Yeah.
So that gets you through the middle of the run, and you start to get towards Sydney.
Yes, that's where I started to get like heaps of support, heaps of people reaching out. Paul Gallen, a couple of the footy boys at Sharks, Nico, all them.
Being a local from the Southern Shire, it's really good that those boys would reach out and give you that kind of support.
It was hectic. And when you're in this situation, you're fighting for any little bit of motivation that'll get you through.
Yeah.
And those little messages are huge. You know, even bigger, again, is the donations.
That's what I was going to say. So if it's not the comments on social media or the phone calls, it's one of the main reasons you're doing it is to raise money for charity.
And the thing that I think is one of the most beautiful parts of this ultra running journey that I've sort of been on, running the 900 kilometres from Coolangatta to Cronulla, is that it actually it's so much bigger than you, and it's so much broad. There's such a big ripple effect of doing it that it honestly destroys your ego in the best way possible. Yeah. Because people are donating what they've got. People are so committed to you finishing this that it affects them and it affects what they do. So the biggest part of what I did, I was one guy who ran from Coolangatta to Cronulla. There's hundreds of people, thousands of people who donated.
Yeah.
Thousands of
You've
people.
inspired them. You've inspired thousands, Darby. You know, whether it's actually I know you're a modest and humble guy, but the reality is you have. You know, you've given hope to people who think, you know, how can this guy go out there and do that? You know, and it's pushing the mental and physical limits. So, you know, I know you're humble. But mate, you've got to understand
It's all about perspective.
That what you've done though is incredible. And
Thank you.
You know, it's hard to get a gauge on exactly how many people you've affected and helped. But I can tell you that, you know, it's just incredible what you've done, you know, and you talk about this journey and then, you know, I'm guessing that as you get to Sydney, you know, you're starting to go, okay, there is a finish line coming. I've done Queensland. I'm getting towards, you know, starting to get down to say Newcastle or something. So
Amy's stepdad Nudge, he came up and he's not a runner or anything, and Amy's mum came up as well, and they kind of gave me a method with a bit of walking, and the messages start coming in. It's all starting to look like there's a finish line in sight, and he spends about 2 days up there with me, and he actually starts running and walking bits, which was crazy. He doesn't run, and they were like very touched by what was happening. Their experience of it was like arguably more incredible, because they were just so amazed and so happy to be there, so selflessly willing to like help me. And so was all my crew. My girlfriend and my mum were so selflessly willing to help. It became bigger than me. Everyone was getting something out of this.
people are ringing them saying, geez, I hope you guys get, you know.
People were coming up as I got closer to seeing people coming up for them.
Yeah.
Like, that is so cool.
So the support just kept getting
so
layers.
cool to me. And eventually I've got my mates, because this is when my mates started coming up. One of my mates ran a marathon. He's never even done it. He'd done one half marathon a year ago.
Yep.
Comes up, runs a marathon.
Brilliant.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Insane. It was one of the funniest days. That was a funny day when my mates came up. I had one mate come up, Nick, one of my really close mates. He came up, knocked out 2 days with me. 120K.
Yeah. How good's that?
Yeah, on my social media, guy in the yellow shirt.
Okay. Yeah, I saw that.
Yep. So as I started to get closer to Sydney and the finish line's in sight, you start emitting out this good energy because you think you're going to do it. And everything's looking up. Everything's looking sky high. You got people coming out, people supporting messages. It starts to get a little bit fun.
Yeah.
Every day you still don't want to do it. You're still going to these dark places, but you've got an external drive. There's an external energy from you putting out that energy.
Now you can feel it.
Now you can feel it. Then I hit Sydney. Run from the entrance to Ettalong. Ferries are down. It was thunderstorming, like windy as
Gone
windy
from
can be.
42 degrees
Gone
to
from
thunderstorms and pissing down rain.
It was like 18 degrees. Torrential rain. Like some of the hardest rain. You're on a peninsula out in the Central Coast, and as you come across Palm Beach. So it was probably, I've never seen wind like this. Never in my life have I seen it this windy.
Yeah.
And we jump in the car at Ettalong, drive around Mooney Bridge because the ferries were down, drive back all the way out to Palm Beach on the peninsula there, and I get dropped on the edge of Palm Beach, right on the edge of the peninsula. And I've got to now run.
That's where you would get off if you were to take the ferry?
Yeah.
Yep. So no cheating.
No cheating.
Probably went back a few kilometers.
Yeah, exactly right. In party, is like, oh, should I leave the Garmin running? And then you're like, I can't.
Can't do it. Can't do it. Someone will see it.
Yes, I can't do it. Yeah, so stop you can look at it on my Strava. It's 230Ks. So it was 30Ks from entrance to Ettalong, and then drove around 30K from Palm Beach to Mossman.
And that's good that you explained it, because some people might have looked at it and actually thought, how did that?
Yeah. It's the same as when my Garmin died. You can see.
That's right.
There's like, it's 35K.
Yeah.
Stops and then 25K.
Okay.
Because I was spewing that day. But yeah. So drive around to Palm Beach, and I start running. It's bucketing down rain. I'm running. This was the last leg of this entire journey that had been the most difficult thing I've ever done in my life.
So where was Palm Beach to?
Palm Beach to Mossman. Spit Bridge.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've gone through this insanely life-changing journey, all to end up at Palm Beach running along Barrenjoey Road.
Yeah.
And anyone who's ever driven that, It's not good.
Yeah, yeah.
It's hills. It's windy. It was bucketing down with rain. There's no bike lane. I'm running in the lane, and I'm probably walk the first 3Ks swearing, throwing my stuff in the gutter. Like I'm blowing. You end up blowing up at the most random stuff. I'm screaming at Palm Beach Council because the roads are slanted. I'm scared.
Why would you have hills?
Why would you make that? And I'm throwing my stuff in the drains, like screaming.
Yep.
I pick all my stuff up. I've got 25 Ks to get before the end of the last 60K of 14 days. Pick my stuff up. I remember I was so angry. I'd never been this angry in my life. Put my hat on. Put the sunnies on. Shut up. You're going to do it.
Yeah.
1 foot in. I ended up running like a 5-minute something pace for the next 25 Ks and knocked the whole entire thing out. I was running in the lane, bucketing. It was raining that hard. When the rain hit my blisters on my lips, they would start to bleed.
Oh.
There was blood. It was really bad. But I dropped the hammer and had to get it done.
Yeah. So then you're getting close to Cronulla by then.
Yeah, I'm in Mossman then, and then I knocked the last 2 days out. The second last day was a 20K over the Harbour Bridge to Brighton, and then that last 10K was from Brighton to Cronulla.
So you take off last 10Ks to go.
Crazy.
From Brighton to Cronulla.
Best 10K of my life.
I was going to say, probably one of your quickest too.
Yeah, best 10K of my life. I was running a 4-minute something pace for the last 2K.
And you would, because you're sitting there and you're thinking, where, you're going to be about to go into what you think might be, 50, 100, 500 people, and you get there and the park is just packed.
Yeah. It was crazy.
You've got blokes like Nico Hines and Dale Finucane down there, Blake Johnson, who's, obviously done his own incredible feat, about a year ago. So, you've got these people down there who are just encapsulated by what you've done, and finally everything. Those times when you're by yourself, times when Game was with you, the messages from Billy Dibb, and it all, culminates in this moment where you're out the front of Northies, where you've probably been a long time as a kid, and now you're there for a totally different reason. And what an amazing feeling.
It was incredible. I was running in with a pack behind me. I had my best mate Nick next to me. He just knocked out 120 Ks with me as well. I've got him next to me, and I remember I just stopped at the top of the hill and gave him a high five. And it was funny when he came and ran those 120 Ks with me the whole time, because it was on the tail end. We were talking. I wonder what it'll be like. I wonder what it'll actually be like down there, and I wonder what it'll be like feeling like to finish. And he ran 120 K with me, and then he ran the 20 and the 10.
Yeah, beautiful.
So he ran that last 10 with me. And we got to the top of the hill, and I was like, this is what it feels like. Yeah. And I remember I gave him a high five and just...
Which is a moment for you too.
Yeah. I was like this, and he if you look at the videos, I book it. I just start booking it down the wall, wrap into Dunningham Park, and he's like right behind me. And it was like this shared moment where he was there as well, and all of this... These last 2 weeks, all these memories I'd shared with everyone, all the people that I'd met, he was there for the tail end, and that was what it was. Yeah. And it was insane. There were so many people there. It was crazy. I had the footy boys there, Dale, Nico, Bo Ryan, people were coming up getting photos. And I honestly can't remember so much of it because you're in this heightened state.
I'll be euphoric.
Yeah. it's the most euphoric I've ever felt. Yeah, you're coming off the back of the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. Yeah. Running the 900 kilometres was by far the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. To then this moment of what on earth is going to give me this feeling again? Yeah. Unless I replicate what I just did.
So there's a bit of a fear there to sort of go, God,
definitely.
What am I going to do next?
Yeah.
So through the whole journey, Darb, so you get to the end. What did it mean to have your mum, Amy, Terry support you the way they did? To have them all the way from the start, from the planning at the start of it, through the 42-degree days, through the moments you wanted to give up, through the moments, obviously with the rain, and then eventually getting to Cronulla, and you embraced them. How did that feel?
Amazing. Yeah. The pain that I had been in for the last 2 weeks, I had the physio had told me that I had stress fractures in my foot, and I had the shin splints. When I moved my leg, you could hear it. I was in so much physical pain, and as soon as I got to that finish line and was hugging them, all went away, which was wild. It was like just so amazing to all 4 of us. We had been through this together. They had seen me at my lows, at my highs. They had seen everything, and it just came down to that moment. Everyone was done. I wasn't just done.
Good point.
Everyone was done. And my mum talks about it still. There's still an emptiness.
Yeah.
Still an emptiness. Amy didn't. She was a little bit. Everyone was having this massive moment. I remember all my mates went out and got on the drink after, and I went home because we were
celebrating what you'd achieved, saying I'm one of his best mates.
Yeah. And I went home because I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm done now, and now it's again just having that. What's next? I sky's the limit.
Yeah.
And that's what I think the message is for everyone, which is the reason why I did it, which is the reason why I wanted to raise money for Find Your Feet, is to show people that, hey, it's possible.
Yeah. And that mental health part of being for Find Your Feet, that's really important to you, obviously.
Yeah, I'm a school teacher, so I see in schools where it's needed firsthand. I've seen it with my own eyes. And to know that Tommy at Find Your Feet is a one-man operation, I know exactly where every cent of that money is going.
That's great.
And the good that it's going to do. And for the people who donated, like, massive thank you. And I really hope that those people who donated, when they donate, they're putting to a bigger cause. It's not about donating to me.
No, that's right. It's right. Because it was never going to you.
No, it's about donating to something way bigger than me.
That's right. It's what
I just happened to be the person who put it out there and did this thing.
Yeah.
Did this ultra run that I wanted to do. I was passionate about it. And through me, I hope that everyone now knows, hey, this is what we can do.
Yeah.
This is how we can build a better community. This is where money that is donated goes. You can see it.
Yeah.
They're having schools in the Shire.
Yeah.
Like, they do programs in the Shire.
That's great. That's great. And that's where it needs to start.
Exactly
it needs
right.
to start from that level of school kids and then be brought all the way up. And to men at workshops, and, men in, car, working in yards and, footy teams. The message needs to go across it that it's okay to speak and it's okay to be vulnerable.
Start the conversation.
Start the conversations, and not only when you need help, before it gets to that, talk to your mates, know that you're always going to be there. And
I think my mates are a perfect example of that.
Yeah.
Like, I they will take the piss out of me for running and they were the first, they were up there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
But
Because
it's all jokes and whatever. But when I need to talk to them, when they need to talk to me, they'll always know it's okay.
And that's massive, Yeah. And that's one of the reasons, Darb, that I was so passionate about getting you on board. And even though I only met you on Saturday, things like that don't just happen. They happen for a reason.
Exactly.
And I was so, like with the talk we had on Tuesday, and then to, obviously announce you as an ambassador for another day. And obviously our big thing is around men's mental health. And you don't just have to be, an NRL player or anything like that. We're proud that you're a local boy, but you've achieved something, and you've gone out and you've shown what mental strength looks like and actually committing to something and pushing through, and also while raising money for mental health. So, mate, we're really proud to have you on board, and I think you'll be a great addition, and we look forward to, doing some incredible things with you.
Yeah,
there has been talk of a 5-kilometre run club.
Yeah.
We can't commit to who's going to run it yet, but Darby will be the head coach. So
I
know there's plenty of boys out there who are keen, but thank you so much, mate.
No, thank you. And I'm stoked to be a part of it, and I think there's really good things to come.
Mate,
and it's not the end.
No, definitely not.
It's definitely not the end.
So
it's just the beginning.
There'll be some things in the pipeline, but mate, love your story. Thank you so much for giving our Another Day group and more myself the opportunity to sit down with you and have this podcast and listen to your journey. I've been fortunate enough to listen to it twice now.
I'm stoked to be able to share it.
And mate, it is great. It is inspirational. I think there's a lot of good moments in there that people will draw from. It's funny, and there's some emotion behind it, and that's what you want when you're telling a story. So, mate, thank you so much. I hope everyone really enjoyed the first episode of Questions for Another Day, and what a great way to start with Darby Maguire. Thank you so much, mate.
Thank you. Appreciate it.